I'm pretty sure I said this after Atlanta too, but no, it quite literally does not get closer than this. The closest finish in NASCAR history. Hey, NASCAR, can I interest you in some of this maybe, just to avoid future confusion? How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove. Gosh, I thought Memorial Day weekend was supposed to be the greatest weekend in racing. How about May 4th and 5th? May the photo finishes be with you. The Kentucky Derby on Saturday did its best Atlanta Motor Speedway impression, 3 wide finish by a nose. Then Sunday afternoon, Formula One came over to the States, took over the streets of Miami, a decent race actually, with a fan favorite driver earning his first career win. And then Sunday night, NASCAR said, "Hold my bush light." Oh my goodness, so much to get to. I'm recording this at nearly 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm exhausted. You won't see this video until the morning when I finally wake up from my Kansas Speedway coma and edit it. I have been buzzing ever since the checkered flag flew. Actually, when the checkered flag waved, we didn't know who won. It took another, minute or so to confirm. I tweeted out that Chris Buescher had won. That's what it said on the pylon, the sacred pylon. But no, that was not in fact the case. Kyle Larson won in what is now the closest finish in NASCAR history. We will get to that, believe me. Honestly, if we start at the beginning though, stage 1, the first 80 laps was enough to send me home happy. It was basically an 80-lap battle for the lead with sliders, crossovers, Kyle Larson, Ross Chastain, Denny Hamlin putting on a show. Kansas Speedway right now is without question one of the 4 raciest tracks in NASCAR, with the next gen car specifically, I should clarify. Throw Charlotte into the mix. I'm excited for the 600 here in a couple of weeks. Throw Atlanta into the mix. I think it's the best super speedway at the moment. And then Bristol. Weather and tire conditions were perfect a few weeks back. That may not be the case every time, but that race was special. Kansas is now in that group. Kansas Speedway has probably been the most consistent track in the next gen era. There's a reason I made the trip out to Kansas Speedway this weekend after saying I was going to for years. The racing at Kansas has been so good, I had to come see it in person, and boy am I glad I did. Stage 1 was fantastic. The beginning of stage 3, a little sloppy, a lot of spins, a few crashes mid-pack. But then stage 3 evolved into some good old-fashioned fuel mileage racing with Denny Hamlin, Chris Buescher, Kyle Larson, Martin Truex Jr. on different strategies, trying to conserve, trying to push in the closing laps. Then Kyle Busch, who I think was running top 5 at the time, spins out. I'll be honest, in the moment, I thought he'd ruined what was shaping up to be a fantastic finish. Turns out I had absolutely nothing to worry about. Denny Hamlin, Chris Buescher, Kyle Larson, come down pit road, take right sides only. A bold move considering I think they all had at least 60 to 70 laps on their left sides. While Martin Truex Jr., the hard charger, chose to take 4 tires. He restarted 10th, which I honestly thought wasn't a bad position. I know it's a 2-lap shootout, but Kansas Speedway is so wide, there are so many options, and with how many laps were on those left side tires, I thought Truex would have a significant advantage, and sure enough he did. He was running 4th by the time they took the white flag. Despite the split pit strategy, this race was still decided by the same 4 key players. Denny Hamlin got beat by Kyle Larson on the restart, got put in the middle in the sucker hole. Truex charged his way from 10th up into the top 5 on the final lap. And Chris Buescher, Kyle Larson battled 1v1 on the final lap. Oh my goodness, let's talk about this finish. I didn't hate the line Chris Buescher took getting into turn 3. Sure, you could say he was kind of in the middle, no man's land, but he was hedging his bets. He was still playing defense, taking a defensive line while still staying high enough that he could hopefully keep his car wound up and maintain momentum. Larson, though, being the wild man he is, was willing to push it just a little bit higher. He got to Chris Buescher's right rear. That was the difference. Buescher, again, being in the defensive line, was able to push Larson up. He did everything he could but put Larson in the wall. Raced him extremely clean, extremely fair. They door slammed out of 4. Respect to both of these racers. I know there was a little bit of contact, but that's just good, hard, fair NASCAR racing down the stretch. This race was decided by, a millimeter, not an inch, not a centimeter, but like a millimeter, the tiny little ticks on the ruler that we usually ignore. This might have been the first true photo finish in the digital NASCAR age. Like, you got to go back to that 3-wide Daytona 500 finish from decades ago. That was like the original photo finish. This is the modern photo finish because telemetry, digital timing, and scoring got it wrong. When they flew across the line, like I said, Chris Buescher's number 17 was on top of the pylon. On the Fox broadcast, it said Chris Buescher in P1. Buescher and his team were cheering and celebrating going down the back straightaway when NASCAR delivered the bad but honest news. Reporter Jeff Gluck helped explain after the race that NASCAR doesn't look at the painted line. They've got their high-speed cameras set up right at the start-finish, pointed straight across the track. That is the line. The painted line is more ceremonial, I guess, if anything. Which is why you saw, and actually you even saw RFK Racing tweet that, hey, the line was painted a little questionably. That's why I joked at the beginning, just some painter's tape, maybe a straight edge, we could avoid future confusion. I get that the painted line is not the official scoring marker, but with how many close photo finishes we've had this year, we can't have such disparity. We need the line to be painted a little more clearly so fans aren't up in arms and teams don't get the wrong idea. Anyway, NASCAR posted this image. This is from their high-speed camera, which I believe shoots at like 6,000 to 8,000 frames per second. For reference, you're watching this on my camera, which is set to 30 frames per second, which is what the typical human eye is capable of seeing. Thousands of frames per second, getting every detail exactly correct. And you can see in this image, yes, Kyle Larson hits that line, it appears, just before Chris Buescher does. And the reason the 17 showed up on the top of the scoring pylon is because the transponder on these cars is actually towards the rear. The winner is decided by whose nose hits the line first, not wherever the transponder is. So that's why the readout was incorrect. That's how close this finish was and why we actually needed old school photography to get the results right. That's insane. I honestly never thought in the modern digital era of NASCAR we would need to rely on cameras pointed at the start-finish line to determine the winner. That's insane. I feel for Chris Buescher, man. He posted this photo on X later in the evening. Man, it looks like an album cover. Is he about to drop his own diss track on the start-finish line? He was also complimentary of how both Larson and Denny Hamlin raced him down the stretch, saying, "As much crap as you might get, Denny Hamlin, you've always raced me clean. Great battle today. And to be clear, y'all, no shade at Kyle Larson. We were banging doors all the way to the checkered. He's one heck of a racer, and that was just two drivers going for the trophy." I know a win would have been huge for Chris Buescher and all of Ford. Ford is now 0 for 30 in the top 3 series of NASCAR this year, which is an insane losing streak. And Chris Buescher, while he's had a few good top 10 runs this year, he's not been in real contention for a victory since last season. It's been a rough go for Ford. They aren't in this position very often, so when you see the checkered flag right in front of you, it's painful to come up quite literally this short. I'm sure Chris Buescher is going to replay that final lap, half lap, maybe final 200 yards in his head over and over and over again. Look, I don't know what happens if he picks a different line. If he runs the wall in 3 and 4, Larson probably tries a slider, maybe completes it and wins. Maybe he fails like he did at Chicagoland and gets into Buescher and then Truex or Elliott wins. If Buescher had run the wall, he's giving Larson the green light to go on the offensive. He can do whatever he wanted with Buescher at that point. If Buescher goes all the way to the bottom, Larson's so good at ripping the top, he would have had so much momentum. It might have been tough to play defense out of turn 4. I think the line Chris Buescher took was sort of the best, maybe the worst of both worlds. He was still able to kind of defend and move Larson up a bit, but was high enough on the track he could keep his car wound up and still had the momentum to race door to door down the front straightaway. Man, second guess all you want. He lost by this much. Man, what does Ford have to do, man? Steven Stumpf on X posted an insane stat last night. Ford has lost 3 races this year, Atlanta and the Texas Xfinity race, and now here at Kansas, by a combined 6 1,000ths of a second. Brutal, absolutely brutal. What a finish. Let's talk about Kyle Larson now. Actually, let's look at some of our top finishers. This is Larson's second win of the season. He also earned, I believe, believe 17 stage points, continuing to add to his total. He's extended his regular season points lead. He's added 5 more playoff points. Another huge day for Kyle Larson. A huge start to the month of May. Honestly, if you think about it, with McLaren winning at Miami in Formula One, and now Kyle Larson winning at Kansas, those two are teaming up more or less at the Indianapolis 500 in a few weeks. Could be a good sign of some big things to come. This could be the start of a monumental month of May. What really jumped out to me about this top 5 is 3 of the best cars all day were Larson, Chris Buescher, and Denny Hamlin, and all 3 had to battle back from some sort of pit road trouble. Larson had some issues on pit road early, I think on the left front, cost him some track position, and we've seen with this car, when you lose that clean air, your day can spiral pretty quickly. Kyle Larson, Cliff Daniels stayed focused as they typically do, battled back to win. Chris Buescher, I thought he was out of it. Won stage 2, but then coming into pit road at the start of stage 3, crew member over the wall too soon. I don't think I've ever heard Chris Buescher quite that emotional over the radio, upset with his team for making such an avoidable mistake, lost all of his track position in the final stage. The cautions fell nicely at the start of stage 3, some smart pit strategy by Scott Graves, that whole team, got him that track position at the end, albeit with slightly older tires, but they were able to put their driver in a good car in position to win still at the end. So great recovery by Chris Buescher's team, and the same can be said about Denny Hamlin. He ran into a couple of issues on pit road in this race. Got blocked in once, then kind of got blocked in a second time when Priest was making his pit stop. Denny Hamlin probably lost at least 10 positions on pit road over the course of this evening, yet there he was at the end. Again, some of the cautions fell at the right time. Chris Gabehart, very smart crew chief, put Hamlin in position to regain track position, and Denny Hamlin, who won the opening stage, was able to still get a strong finish. So just something worth pointing out. We talk all the time about the importance of pit road, having fast pit crews that execute, and that is true. With this next gen car, it is so hard to pass at almost every other track. Kansas Speedway, as wide as it is, we saw a lot of comers and goers. William Byron started dead last pretty much and drove his way up to like 13th in the opening stage. And we know you don't see Byron on this list. He didn't have a great car, but he was still able to make some moves. So well done, Hamlin, Buescher, Larson, all overcoming some sort of pit road trouble at some point in this race. Chase Elliott finishes a strong 3rd. He won at Texas a couple weeks ago, the most recent mile-and-a-half track, though it's worth noting I believe he only earned 1 stage point all day, so he was there at the end, but wasn't able to capitalize fully on the day. Truex, a solid top 5, talked about him. Christopher Bell, the pole sitter, needed an uneventful Sunday for a change. He got that, finished 6th, well done. Another top 10 for Alex Bowman, another good week for Kyle Busch. Despite the late race spin, rebounds to finish top 10. There's nothing quite like an angry, motivated Kyle Busch on a late race restart. And another top 10 for Noah Gragson. Shoot, qualified 3rd, was inside the top 10 most of the day. He is carrying the banner for Stewart-Haas Racing, it feels like. I know that penalty has put him a little deeper in the standings, but he's got 5 top 10 finishes this year. Really impressive stuff from Gragson. Michael McDowell as well squeaks out a top 10. So Ford, all things considered, one of their better races. Shocking you don't see any Penske cars in the top 10. Blaney, see him a little bit lower there, was a non-factor. Joey Logano spun out all by himself, I'm pretty sure, and finished 34th. Austin Cindric qualified well, but was caught up in an accident, 37th. Terrible day for Team Penske, but Ford actually wasn't too bad, so that's encouraging. A couple other drivers I want to mention. Bubba Wallace, who's been very good at Kansas historically, finishes 17th. Ross Chastain was in the mix, put on a show, especially early on. He ends up 19th. Tyler Reddick, I think one of the favorites coming into this race, he ends up 20th. I mentioned William Byron earlier, another sort of uncharacteristically off day. Got into the wall in qualifying, started at the very back and worked his way forward, but never quite broke into that top 10. He finishes 23rd behind Corey Heim, making his 2nd Cup Series start. Heim, another driver who recovered from an early pit road issue, he sped in the opening stage under green, lost a lap, eventually got it back, and was actually up inside the top 10 briefly towards the end. He spun coming to the checkered. I didn't actually see exactly what happened. One more driver I'd like to mention, Jimmie Johnson, had his best qualifying effort of the season, was 19th on Saturday. Was running okay, running inside the top 25, top 26 when he got caught up in a crash. Looked like he checked up thinking there was something going wrong ahead of him. LaJoy was behind him. They made contact. Jimmie Johnson finishes 37th. Man, tough for Jimmie. That was a big hit too. Hope he's feeling all right. But those are some of your top finishers from Kansas. Any race that features a late race restart and some split pit strategy will typically shuffle the running order a bit. Before we get out of here, we have to put this race on the Groovy gauge, and I've been letting this marinate for a bit. The Groovy gauge, of course, is powered by electric e-bikes all year long. Head to electricebikes.com. Link is down in the description below to check out all their great products. Find a ride that fits you. We've already seen 2 perfect scores this year. Atlanta, flawless super speedway style race with an all-time iconic finish. Bristol was a happy little accident. Tons of strategy, tire conservation, passing throughout. I said this at the time. Bristol was like the perfect old school NASCAR race. Everyone's been comparing it to like short track late model stock events, while Atlanta was like the perfect modern NASCAR race. Drafting, tight pack, photo finish, equal cars and drivers. Atlanta and Bristol were like 2 extremes. I think Kansas slots in somewhere here in the middle. It was the best of both worlds. Plenty of long runs in the first 2 stages, lots of passing, jockeying for position, a fuel mileage race breaking out towards the end of stage 3, but then we got an overtime restart and a tight side-by-side photo finish. Great racing at the ends of stages, a beautiful blend of modern and old school NASCAR. I can't believe this, but we have our 3rd 100% of the year. I went back and looked. I didn't give a 100 all of 2023. You have to go back to 2022. My grading scale may be somewhat inconsistent, but I'm not usually this generous. This year has just been all or nothing. We're either griping about bad aero, sketchy racetracks, no tire wear, or we're seeing all-time classic finishes that we'll be raving about for decades to come. There's no in-between. It's all or nothing. It's the Denny Hamlin of NASCAR Cup Series seasons. It's a 100% for me. Let me know what you thought of today's Advent Health 400, or actually yesterday, by the time you're seeing this, yesterday's Advent Health 400 down in the description. Not the description. I'm exhausted. Down in the comment section below. I am exhausted. Kansas Speedway was awesome this weekend. It was my first time visiting. The facility was great. The surrounding area, very built up, easy to get around. If you don't have tickets for the playoff race, get them now. Get them while they're going fast. I haven't set my travel schedule for the second half of the year just yet. I'm going to do everything I can to get back to Kansas Speedway. This is Dale Jr. called Atlanta the hottest ticket in NASCAR last year. He may not be wrong. Atlanta's put on some phenomenal racing, but Kansas Speedway, man. All this talk about tracks that deserve, 2 dates versus 1 date. A lot of talk about Kansas. Maybe it could go down to 1 date in the future. Shoot. With the last few years of racing, I want Kansas on the schedule 20 times a year. We talk about what Texas should do with the banking. Turn it into Kansas. Just cross your fingers and hope for the best. Kansas Speedway and the next gen car, it's like a perfect marriage. The next gen has a conflicted relationship with most other tracks, but Kansas Speedway, it's chef's kiss. It is absolutely bonkers just how good this car races at this track. But it's such a struggle so many other places. I don't get it. Let me know what you thought of today's race, yesterday's race, down in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching. It was amazing to meet so many fans at Kansas Speedway. A lot of fans I'd never met before. Amazing, humbling to see the support out there. Really appreciate you guys. If you're new to the channel and you're not part of the grooviest gang of race fans, you can hit that subscribe button down below. Thank you so much for tuning in. Because I'm posting this, I guess, on Monday morning, my upload schedule's a little wonky this week, but don't get me wrong, power rankings coming your way soon. Got some teammate drama and more perhaps to unpack later this week as well. Lots to come, lots of good stuff. I will see you again very soon. Have a wonderful start to your week.